Night settles over kitchens, old and new. Steam twirls like quiet incense, and history stirs in a humble pot. Tonight, we drift between continents, following a single tender thread, no louder than a whisper, yet strong enough to knot centuries together. They call it noodles, and sometimes they call it pasta. Strings of dough pulled, pressed, cut, coiled, like constellations laid flat upon a board. Simple as flour and water. Sometimes egg, sometimes salt, but always a promise. That hunger, was it China first or Italy first? History is a patient river, but the banks argue. One side tells stories of Han markets and Tang caravans. The other sings Roman roads and Sicilian winds, bringing wheat to kiss the sun. You don't need a verdict tonight, only a seat close to the stove. We will listen to the dough itself, how it stretches, how it breathes, how a hand that knows will stop before the strand breaks. In northern China, wheat replaces rice as winters bite. Hands grow fluent in the language of gluten. La mian, pulled and pulled again, a spell of doubling. 8, 16, 32, like the moon splitting its own light into a silk of snow. And when the rope finds courage, the room goes quiet, because patience is singing under the steam. In the south, Dao Xiao Men, knives shave ribbons from a block of dough. Each slice lands in water with a sigh, as if the pot were a lake that forgives all falls. Across seas, Italy dreams in shapes. Orecchiette, little ears, farfalle, butterflies, conchiglie, shells that hold memory, tagliatelle, a river trained to be a road, and spaghetti, the staff lines on which garlic and tomato write music. Between these kitchens, a road of merchants and midnight hooves. Silk moved like moonlight from east to west, and with the silk moved stories, spices, skills, the way a scent slips from one house to the next, until bowls on far tables began to taste like neighbors. Some say Marco Polo carried noodles like treasure from China to Venice. Others smile and point to older crumbs, already on the Italian table. Etruscan pots with ridges like dried pasta's ribs. Latin words for kneading, cutting, boiling, whispering. The thread was already here. There is another possibility, gentler and truer to the night, that good ideas can sprout in more than one garden, that flour meets water in many valleys, and hunger teaches the same lovely lesson everywhere. Let's watch technique like stargazers. In Xi'an, a master turns and turns, folds, twists, elongates until a single rope becomes a chorus of threads. Each stretch tests patience. Each bounce renews faith that gluten will sing. And the song does not belong to one country, but to every kitchen where warm hands remember. In Bologna, the board is dusted with pale gold. Egg yolks, like small suns, are beaten into mourning. The sheet becomes a field, wide and thin. Then the knife writes ribbons you can read with your tongue. Flavor is geography wearing perfume. Northern China braises beef until it remembers how to be tender. Star anise listens. Ginger steadies the breath. Meanwhile, the Italian South keeps summer in jars. Tomatoes, basil, olives, a red lullaby, spooned overnight. 2 broths, 2 sauces. One clear as winter light, the other crimson as late sunset. Yet both ask the noodle to be brave to carry heat and story to the quiet waiting mouth. Arguments cool when bowls are warm. A child in Guangzhou and a child in Naples both lift strands like comet tails and try not to lose a single star. So tonight, we will not choose a winner. We will choose a rhythm, a breath between boil and bite, between history and hush, and let the pot keep time with our hearts. The Ancient Noodle War was always a soft war, fought with patience, with wrists that remember, with flour on the cheek and steam on the lashes. No banners, no drums, only kitchens teaching what hands can do when gentle. If you listen closely, you'll hear the dough not arguing, but agreeing. That stretch requires rest, strength, blooms from softness, and that the best strands are those you make together. Night needs. In a clay bowl, wheat drinks water and becomes possibility. Patience rises like a quiet tide under the moon of your palm. Flour floats, pale mist over the table. When it lands, your hands become weather. A slow rain, a soft wind, coaxing powder into earth. First touch is humble, a circle of fingers gathering edges inward. The bowl holds its breath as crumbs agree to be company, and company agrees to be one. Wheat remembers distant fields, sun on its back, rain in its hair. Water remembers mountain shade and the long road to your tap. Memory is the secret spice you never had to buy. In Shaanxi, they rinse the dough until the water runs cloudy, separating gluten from starch like sifting courage from fear. What remains is spring, curious and elastic, like a child at the door. Gluten speaks in the language of tug and return. Pull me, it says, but do not break me. Rest me, it says, and I will learn to stretch without sorrow. In Emilia, a cotton cloth becomes a sky under which dough learns to breathe. Rest is not idleness, it is intelligent waiting. A pause that turns effort into grace. You press, then stop, the way waves leave the shore to gather again. Each rest returns strength, like sleep after tears. Salt wakes flavor, but it also steadies structure. A small fist of crystals dissolves into counsel, reminding the dough that even tenderness needs a spine. Listen for silence inside the bowl. There is a moment when the dough stops clinging and starts holding itself. Like a thought she finally formed, standing without your hand. Now oil the board, or dust it lightly according to your weather. Humidity writes in ink, dry air writes in chalk. Adjust as elders do, without measuring spoons, and always with kindness. Kneading is prayer without words. Heel of the palm, fold, turn, breathe. The rhythm teaches far more than it takes, and gives back as glow. A child watches and wants to help, so you give them a small moon of dough. They press too hard, then laugh when it springs back as if alive. Across the world, another kitchen hums. A nonna tests the dough with the back of her fingers. Piano, she whispers, softly, softly, until it answers, like skin. Time sits with you at the table, not on a clock, but in a feeling. When the lump becomes a living smoothness, when its face shines a little like river stone, you know, cover it and let it dream. Dreams are gluten's tutors, teaching it how to belong without losing itself. When you wake it, use gentleness, like sunlight, opening curtains. Now press and roll. The pin is a quiet comet, leaving pale trails on the board. Edges whisper to the center until the sheet is even as calm water. If it fights you, it's only asking for a minute more. Cover, breathe, sip tea, come back, and the sheet will open like a palm, ready for promise. In the north of China, hands pull. A single rope becomes 2, then 4, then 8. A spell of doubling, counted in breath. Each bounce of the strand is a heartbeat you can see. In Emilia-Romagna, hands flatten sun into a meadow. Tagliatelle is measured against a golden tail, wide enough to remember a city's love, thin enough to keep it airborne. Flour drifts like light snow. The board becomes a horizon. A palm turns, and the sheet answers with a silk-soft sigh. Edges listen to the center. The center listens back. Then the knife writes a river into the field, ribbons that know where to flow. And in the corner, a child watches, counting breaths, not inches. Learning that length is also feeling, and feeling is how dough learns to fly. Waiting is part of making. The pot needs time to find its rolling voice. The sauce must lower its temper to the hush of evening. You straighten jars, wipe a circle on the table, and listen to tiny sounds. A bubble stating its case, a spoon settling in the ladle rest, a window testing its latch. Meanwhile, gluten remembers everything you asked of it, not a command, but an invitation to be long and kind. And the kitchen breathes with you, slow, steady, like tides, learning manners. You set 2 timers, one on the stove and one inside the chest. The second is older and wiser. It rings without numbers when aroma turns corner from raw to ready. A curl of steam changes shape from question mark to lullaby. You lift the lid half an inch, and the room learns a new vowel. The broth stops whispering and begins to speak. The sauce relaxes shoulders and remembers how summer made promises. Some argue about exact minutes, but the truth is chewed, not counted. Taste, and you will know when the noodle speaks clearly. It should answer with spring, not squeak, with give, not collapse. Salt should lift, not shout. Oil should glow, not glare. You test again for courtesy, not doubt, because a second more or less can change a Tuesday into a small festival. And festivals begin with someone who tasted instead of timing. Water's song changes. At first, busy, distracted, like a street, before dawn. Then steady, as if it found its pitch. This is when the dough enjoys becoming what it was born to be. Starch takes the hand of heat. Gluten opens its gates. The strand grows brave and carries memory from pot to bowl. You smile at the quiet skill of boiling a small storm, learning how to be gentle. Lift a strand, let it cool, a breath upon the spoon. Bite and listen for the spring, not squeak for the give, not collapse. This is done. The pot nods softly and keeps its roll as if to say, I can hold the rest with care. You lay the lid askew, the way a storyteller leaves space for another tale. Steam writes a pale ribbon on the window. Outside, the night agrees and draws closer to watch. In a village far from maps, a cook teaches without words. They tap the table 2 slow beats, meaning rest. Then 3 light taps, meaning go on. Aprons translate better than books. Wrists remember what pages sometimes forget. That softness is a lesson, and lessons need pauses. The dough hears everything you do not say and answers with the language of ease. Your kitchen can learn these tempi. The pauses are where flavor finds its chair. The rests are how texture finds its voice. Now bring together what waited apart. Noodles meet broth with winter gratitude, or noodles meet sauce with summer memory. Either way, they bow and embrace. A quiet clink is the applause no one needs to see. Steam writes poems on your glasses. You lift them, wipe a sleeve, and smile. Tonight's lesson was not speed, but listening, not mastery, but manners, between hand and heat. The room settles like flour after a gentle breath, and even the clock ticks softer, as if practicing bedtime. Hunger is healed in chapters, gathering, resting, stretching, boiling, binding. Every step a lullaby. Every lullaby a step towards sleep. At the table, words are softer. Bowls make diplomats of us all. No one shouts with a mouth full of warmth. When dishes dry and lights go low, touch the board once more and thank it. Tomorrow, your hands will remember without trying. Wheat, water, waiting, and the way they became comfort. Broth speaks in a clear voice when bones give memory to water. Sauce answers with sun kept close, tomato, olive, and late-day heat. Put your ear to the pot and you will hear the patient grammar of simmer. Small bubbles like careful commas, pausing without ending the thought. A lid tilts just enough for sentences of steam to finish their meaning. And the room learns to read by breathing in time with the pot. In Gansu, winter is long and the road is white with breath. A broth there is a blanket folded many times. Bone meets water. Ginger wakes, scallion smiles. Time does the heavy lifting, as if stirring from the other side. Clarity is a virtue, not thinness, but focus. Like a window, polished until a mountain appears unannounced. Meanwhile, by a southern sea, a pan holds the color of August. Tomatoes collapse from chorus to choir. Garlic softens from shout to whisper, and basil lands like a promise. Oil carries sunlight into the night, remembering the grove, the bees, the ladder against bark. What broth makes clear, sauce makes close. Both are doors to comfort, opened with different keys. Broth asks the noodle to be itself, to speak plainly and spring true. Sauce asks the noodle to make a duet, to glide and harmonize. Taste the broth with eyes closed. See clear roads, moon on snow, boots drying by the hearth. Taste the sauce with eyes half open. A courtyard at dusk, laundry lines, a cat stretching on warm stone. Some nights we need distance, other nights we need nearness. Both nights we need a bowl. Add star anise and time slows. Add anchovy and depth steps quietly into the room. Seasoning is cartography, tiny marks that change the whole map. A tilt of vinegar redraws a coast. A clove names a mountain in red. The difference is not an argument. It is a weather report for the tongue. Crops, trade, longing, all drawn in steam. Along the Silk Road, salt traveled like coin and story. Salt kept lamb as if holding hands with tomorrow. And by the coasts, it tasted of tides, preserved jars, crossed decks, dry cords of noodles, bridged winters. Boats left with thunder in their ribs. Carts arrived with dawn in their wheels. And always someone hung strands like laundry between houses, learning to sway with wind. Broth builds from beneath, starting with bones and patience. Sauce builds from above, starting with sun and harvest. They meet in the mouth as equals, and the noodle becomes translator. Spring and glide, river and road, two languages spoken on one quiet tongue. There is a moment when broth stops being separate things, when water turns memory into presence. It happens just after you think nothing is changing. There is a moment when sauce gathers itself, when red decides its shade, when the pan smells like a street after rain, and the window fogs with news of readiness. Moments small as a breath, but big enough to carry a night. In Lanzhou, 5 colors bless a bowl: clear, red, green, white, yellow, broth, chili, herbs, radish, noodle, balance. Made visible, then edible. In Naples, red meets white, tomato and garlic over pale ribbons. A snowfall of cheese becomes quiet applause, heard by the spoon first, then by the heart. Ask elders of their winters and summers and cook the answer. Let the spoon be slower than your hunger. Rushing steals the ending from a good story. When the bowl's empty, listen to the aftertaste. Broth leaves a bell ringing in clean air. Sauce leaves footprints of sun on the tongue. Wash the pot as if closing a book. Warm water turning pages without tearing. You set it back, and the kitchen goes quiet, like a library at night. If dreams visit, they will carry bowls, clear roads, and red seas, 2 ways home. Hooves, lanterns, low stars. Lantern lines sway over Dunhuang. Hooves drum softly across the blank night. Vendors douse embers and whisper routes. Salt, spice, silk, and sacks of wheat. Each step writes a ledger of hunger and hope in dust that remembers rain. Far dunes breathe like sleeping camels. Near hands warm a pot that keeps road maps in steam. At Jiayuguan Inns, steam is a translator, carrying pulled strands across tongues from caravan guards to scribes to dancers. A quiet bowl for the map maker, a brighter one for the porter. No one argues when warmth finds both hands at once. The door curtain lifts as if nodding, yes. On Venice docks, barrels knock like slow hearts. Garum-slicked pans meet early red sauce. Oil learns the patience of broth. Broth borrows the courage of oil. The sea keeps secrets, but shares them. Piece by piece, a gull writes commas in the air, and the tide turns a page. Shapes carry messages that paper never could. Knots, braids, ribbons, rings. Each shape says, I was made for this wind, this weather, this table. A child reads with their tongue and learns history in a single bite. The bowl becomes a library where silence is the index. A potter repairs a bowl. A sailor mends a rope. 2 kitchens, 2 windows lit across continents. They season with memory and stir in the same direction. so the past does not unravel, and tomorrow has a handle. You can hold, steam, signs both names on the pane. Time is the longest spice and the only one we cannot purchase twice. Drying racks stretch across courtyards like strings for invisible music. Sun writes shelf life in a patient hand. Night proofreads with dew, and morning ties bundles for the road. Feast days rename streets with laughter and lantern smoke. Markets bloom after dark. Chion calls out, Naples answers. Public joy is a recipe we forget until we taste it again. Drums keep time for noodles in flight, and bells applaud from rooftops. Tools teach in wood and wire, board, knife, pin, basket, pasta, guitar, noodle pole. Each tap a measured kindness, each scrape a revision toward tender. Handles remember palms, the way rivers remember stones. A groove is a lesson you can touch. Science hums under lullaby. Starch gels at the edge of boiling. Gluten webs catch sauce like dew. What we call just right is a network agreeing to be gentle. Heat is grammar, water the verb, and time the soft punctuation of sleep. Weather edits craving with a slow pencil. Snow asks for chew and broth. Sun-swept patios ask for glide and gloss. We pass bowls as if exchanging small seasons in our hands, and each sip redraws the map from winter hearth to summer shade. Salt keeps what love would lose. Ash warms what winter would take. Boats leave with thunder in their ribs. Carts arrive with dawn in their wheels. And always, someone hangs noodles like laundry between houses. In Trapani, white pans of salt mirror the sky. In Guangzhou, cords of wheat tan like late straw. A grandmother ties bundles for the lean months. A child counts knots, learning calendar by touch. Preservation is a lullaby for future hunger, not stern, but steady. What we save is not only food, but time and patience, and the hands that lifted for the hands that will receive. In the ledger of kitchens, salt and ash are signatures of care, inked slowly so tomorrow can read. At last, we admit the road cooked with us. We lay down flags and lift our spoons. Not victory, but truce. Not borders, but bridges. A caravan shares broth with a crew from the harbor. Spices speak, olive answers. Steam writes treaties on cold glass that vanish yet remain in taste. The winner is warmth. The prize is sleep. Bowls circle the table like small moons, tidal with gratitude. Hands that were strangers find the same handle, and the argument loses its shoes at the door. Let the night record this, gently, so we can dream without guardposts. If you listen to the road at night, you will hear recipes walking. A knot taught in Dunhuang ties a ribbon in Venice. Between them, steam draws a map no empire ever owned. Hoofprints fade, but taste persists. Harbor ropes fray, but the sauce remembers. A porter hums a noodle tune. A gondolier echoes in another key. The path is not straight. It meanders, like dough under gentle hands. It crosses stoves, then notebooks, then mouths. Every waypoint is a bowl rinsed clean, set upside down to dry, like a small hill after rain. Follow the quiet aroma, and you will arrive, even with no lantern. When the bowl's empty, let the aftertaste speak. It tells you who waited, who traveled, who traded, and it tells you you are home. Wherever gentle hands set down a spoon, Chopsticks rest, fork tines shine, the tablecloth keeps the memory of elbows, the kettle exhales one last cloud. Windows cool from parchment to glass. Across the lane, a dog circles twice, then sleeps. Above the roofs, late stars stitch the dark. If there was a war, it ended in steam. If there were borders, they softened at the rim of a bowl. Good night to roads and oars. Good night to wheat, becoming story. Forms of memories. Bologna needs dawn. Lanzhou folds dusk. On a flowered board, a ring becomes tortellini. In a northern shop, a ribbon becomes lamian. Knots, braids, moons, shells. Each shape carries a note from its weather, a reply to its harvest. A grandmother pinches moons. A boy lines shells on the sill. The window fogs with alphabet soup of shapes. We eat archives, softened by water and time. Pages turned by ladles. Paragraphs salted to sense. Touch a ridge and you can read. Touch a seam and you can guess the festival. Tonight, we open the library of pasta and noodles and borrow silence until morning. In Bologna, a thumbprint teaches orecchiette. In Lanzhou, a stretch teaches ribbon to listen. A seam, sealed tight, promises a warm center. A twist that laughs, promises broth will cling. The dough is dialect, a village in the palm. Rolling pins translate from wheat to wind, from kitchen to table. Children copy the motions, slowly. They pronounce the shapes with their tongues. Outside, bells rehearse noon. Inside, the board rehearses airplanes of flour. Under all this, a rule as old as soup. Make it hold, make it glide, and make it kind. Egg yolk sheets shine like small suns in Modena. Water-kneaded knives whisper in Taiyuan. Different moons, same tenderness. Two suns, yolk and daybreak, warming the same field. Elaine and Rimini trades a secret for a trick learned in Fuzhou. The recipe is a handshake, not a verdict. One bowl leans golden, with yolk-rich silk. One leans clear, with wheat and patience. Both invite the quiet bite. Both remember to rest between stretches. Hold them side by side, and you can hear the same lullaby sung in two keys. Stories grow taller in shadow. A scribe copies a travel tale by candle. Ink pools like night in a spoon. Quanzhou whispers spices. Acre hums with sails. Venice polishes a memory. Beijing edits the margins. Rivers are not their sources, and truth is a village. Shipboard stews become legends on land. Olive-lit sauces credited to strangers, but the bowl on the table cares little for ownership. It wants gratitude and company. We read the footnotes, then put them away and eat what time revised with steam. Weather is an editor. Harbin braids broth for long nights. Napoli keeps a sun jar of tomatoes for later. Turin chooses a thicker strand to argue with cold. Guangzhou chooses glide to cool a humid evening. Capers wake a mouth. Citrus rinses a day. Ginger steadies a breath. Two windows fog. Two patios glow. Climate writes craving. We read with spoons. A map of appetite unfolds without borders. Season by season, bowl by bowl, and winter and summer trade postcards on the thread of a noodle. Wood remembers hands. A craftsman sands a rolling pin until it sings quietly. Grain lifting like a soft sea. Board, knife, pin, basket, pasta guitar, noodle pole. Each tool keeps a diary of wrists and afternoons. Every tap, a kindness. Every groove, a lesson. Calluses become annotations. Along the handle, in Matera, walnut handles darken with olive light. In Suzhou, bamboo shines with steam. Steel shaves neat ribbons. Wire hums a strum of strands. Tools do not boast, they wait and teach. When asked. On the sill in Parma, shells line up like quiet boats. Each conchiglia waits to carry a small tide of sauce. In Lanzhou, rings dry on poles, casting lunar shadows. A child counts them, learning that patience has phases. Shapes are stories you can hold. A ridge keeps thunder from slipping. A pocket hides warmth for later. Festival days choose braids and bows. Work days choose roads and ribbons. But every day chooses kindness. Grandmothers compare seams with friendly pride. Grandchildren steal a raw scrap and smile. Proof rises under cloth like a soft sky, and the kitchen becomes a museum you can eat. There is geometry to tenderness, angles of fold, arcs of wrist, intervals of rest. A circle becomes a moon, then a pocket, then a promise. A line becomes a river, then a road, then a memory. In Genoa, ropes of pasta twist like wind-sung chords. In Lanzhou, braids separate without breaking faith. Every seam is a sentence, every cut a comma, promising more. You dust the board and draw with flour, not to make pictures, but to guide the breath. When the knife writes, display cases hold copper molds, stamped with saints and seasons. Wooden boards wear grooves, like lines on an elder's palm. Makers argue softly about thickness and bite. They are truly arguing about weather and comfort. A heavier edge stands against snow, a finer lace floats in heat. In workshops, strings hum on pasta guitars. In courtyards, noodles swing on bamboo like laundry. Two continents tune the same instrument, tightening here, loosening there, until the note is sleep soft. You run a finger along the grain of time and feel the patience of many afternoons. The room smells of flour, wood, and small victories. Now set the table for shapes to speak. White linen becomes a page where ridges read like lines. Bowls wait like open hands. A ladle rehearses the path it will draw. In Naples, sauce keeps summer close to the tongue. In Lanzhou, broth keeps winter far from the bones. Both are translators for the alphabet of forms. Both say, "Welcome home," in different music. You call the children by tapping the ladle twice. You call the elders by the seat that faces the light. When everyone sits, the room turns into a map, showing how hunger travels and how comfort arrives. Shapes that remember ask one final kindness. Do not rush them when they meet heat. Let broth teach spring. Let sauce teach glide. Taste once for salt, twice for silence. A quiet noodle speaks the clearest. In diaries, cooks sketch silhouettes for future hands, not to control, but to guide. Leave notes on the wall about humidity and hearts, about days when the dough needed a walk before it behaved. Archive the laughter with the recipes for tomorrow's wrists and patience. Then close the notebook and open the bowls. Two suns, yolk and daybreak, rise together. In Modena, egg-rich sheets glow like gentle banners. In Taiwan, water-only dough learns to sing under the knife. Different moons, same tenderness, folded into quiet lengths. Apprentices trade secrets across a lane. A pinch technique for a resting trick. One board holds the gold of hens. Another board holds the silver of snow water. Both ask for kindness in the wrist, for pauses like breaths between lines. Hold the bowls side by side and see how comfort wears two colors of the same sleep. Egg sits like a small sun in a well of flour. You turn morning into silk with a fork, then a pin. Water waits in a jar, cool as river shade. You turn quiet into spring with a blade, then a hand. One doe gleams, one doe listens. Both learn grammar from rest. In Luca, yolks make a meadow, drifting under the knife. In Fuzhou, blades shave a lake of dough into falling leaves. The lesson is not argument, but harmony. Two methods, singing softly into the same bowl. Let skill be gentle, and hunger be patient. To measure yolk, you watch the light, not the clock. To measure water, you watch the breath of the dough, not the scale. Weather writes notes on the window. You answer with smaller turns, longer pauses, kinder heels. A dough that glows forgives a thinner sheet. A dough that listens forgives a deeper cut. Rimini sends ribbons to the city. Taiyuan sends ribbons to the snow. Both return as stories told around bowls of mornings when the kitchen was a quiet chapel, and every stir was prayer. Let the yolk rest until the shine softens. Let the water dough rest until its hush deepens. Cloth becomes a sky under which gluten rehearses kindness. You test with the back of the fingers, seeking not bounce, but bloom. The pin leaves comet tails across the board. The knife leaves moonrises on the pot. Children bring chairs to watch the doubling. Elders bring stories of winters and afternoons. Rest is the teacher. Skill only remembers, and tonight the lesson is mercy. Boiling is the stage where both schools speak clearly. Yolk sheets go in with a sigh. Water strands dive with a whisper. A lid leans, the pot keeps time. Bubbles punctuate without rushing the sentence. Taste for spring, not squeak. Forgive, not collapse. Lift one golden ribbon. Lift one silver thread. Cool a breath across a spoon. They bow in the same bowl. A duet, neither tries to win. And when the table falls quiet, you will hear what the night tells cooks, that victory is warmth. Shared, set two bowls side by side for tasting. You understand why kitchens travel without moving, and how two methods keep one promise warm. Before we leave the lesson, we fold thanks into the cloth. The board rests, the pin sleeps, the knife cools. Egg reminds us of mornings. Water reminds us of rivers. Hands wash slowly, as if turning pages. Steam fades like a good story, closing itself. You label a jar, not with pride, but with patience. Date, weather, a note about a laugh that fixed the dough. Tomorrow we'll borrow from tonight's calm, and the bowl will remember. We carry two lights forward, yolk and snow water, different candles for the same room. Behind us, the kitchen nods and keeps our footsteps soft. Stories grow taller in shadow. A traveler returns, and the room leans closer. Some say a messenger crossed seas, carrying noodles as treasure for Venice. Others lift older shards and words, pots with ridges, verbs for kneading and boiling. The truth is a village, not a throne. Rivers are not their sources alone. We sit with the tale by candle and taste the part that matters. That hunger finds comfort, whether maps agree or not. We mark the margins with gentleness and let the bowl be the proof we can eat. Quanzhou hums with spice. Acre flutters with sails. Venice polishes stories until they shine like coins. A scribe dips a brush, then hesitates. Did pasta arrive by boat or by memory? Caravans brought silk, salts, shadows of technique. Harbors brought oil, olives, and new tongues. But kitchens borrow more than names. They borrow patience and ways of resting. The manuscript swells as steam lifts and margins curl with quiet sea wind. We file the pages, beside the ladle. Both are tools for carrying warmth home. Imagine the ship's galley. In late light, a pot finds its roll while ropes complain softly. Sailors trade measures with cooks. Fistfuls and pinches become a map in the palm. Flour is ballast, oil is weather, salt is coin, traded without counting. Someone laughs at a tale of a far-off market. Someone copies a twist seen in a desert town. When land returns, the story walks faster, but the bowl walks slow, from hand to hand. Legends prefer heroes, kitchens prefer what feeds and lets you sleep. In workshops off small canals, old molds wait, ridged like low hills that hold sauce in place. A potter turns a rim, a smith tempers a blade. The city's craft surrounds the table like quiet guards. The argument shrinks to fit a spoon because proof is what the mouth understands. Taste this ribbon without sauce. Taste it again with a red hush. Two answers, same kindness. The myth keeps walking, but we sit. A candle pulls like a small harbor, and truth ties its skiff for the night. On another shore, a market closes, baskets empty, into stories about roots and rates. A seller swears, a monk taught him a pull. A porter swears, he showed it first. They might both be right. Good ideas sprout in more than one garden. Flour meets water in many valleys. Hunger studies the same lovely lesson. We record names to honor hands, not to chain the recipe to one flag. The ledger ends with steam-soft ink and a note. Share before you sleep. Let us watch a master at work. In Xi'an, the rope turns and turns again. Fold, twist, elongate. Patience becomes chorus of threads. Each stretch tests faith. Each bounce renews it. Spectators breathe slower without knowing. Flour settles like moonlight on cuffs. The strand doubles. 8, 16, 32. A silk of snow, touting itself. When the hands stop, the room remembers, quiet as a bell under winter air. Now cross to a Venetian room. A sheet rests until it learns to be thin, without fear. Egg dawn arrives in the bowl. The knife writes and the ribbon reads with the tongue. Copper pans keep small suns on their skins. Windows make the sea into a lamp. The cook tastes twice for spring, then for silence, because sound can live in texture. Beneath debate, craft continues like tides, ignoring borders. A plate slides forward, carrying an answer that is not a verdict. By the end of night, the myth softens, as if simmered with the prickly bits removed. We keep the story, but lower its voice. We keep the techniques and raise their kinship. Bowls meet on a table, like neighbors. Maps fold to make room for elbows and bread. What traveled was not a single strand, but a manner of kindness between wrists. Before candles go out, we agree to teach by feeding and argue only by taste. The messenger bows to the many hands and leaves us to sleep warm. Weather is an editor. It trims our cravings with a slow pencil. Harbin braids broth for long nights. Napoli keeps a sun jar of tomatoes for later. Turin chooses a thicker strand to argue with cold. Guangzhou chooses glide to cool a humid evening. Snow asks for chew and steam. Sea light asks for gloss and slip. We lean toward bowls the way birds lean into wind, letting climate decide the music. And what the sky revises, our ladles copy gently into the night. In the north, beef learns patience until it remembers how to be tender. Star anise listens, ginger steadies the breath. A clear broth stands like winter light, honest and precise, without thinness. Radish moons cool the surface. Scallion ribbons bless the rim. You lift a strand and hear a bell of spring inside the snow. The bowl warms hands first, then the world a little. Far south, a pan keeps August awake. Tomatoes collapse from chorus to choir. Garlic softens from shout to whisper. Basil lands like a promise. Olive oil carries sunlight into the evening, remembering groves and ladders against bark. The sauce turns from red to warm, from heat to hush. You set a ribbon down and watch as summer climbs aboard, singing quietly. Capers wake the mouth, citrus rinses the day. A twist of peel brightens the lane like a small moon caught in the ladle. In Bari, a breeze finds flower and whispers through the colander. In Guangzhou, night air hangs sweet and noodles choose to glide. Tiny salvations, salt and zest, walk the edge of every bowl. So even tired tongues remember joy. Two windows, fog and glow. Behind one, mittens dry by a stove. Behind the other, shutters breathe with the sea. Both kitchens time their pots by listening, not by clocks. Water learns its pitch. Sauce lowers its voice. At the table, winter and summer trade chairs politely, and conversation wears a shawl woven of steam and patience. Far south, a pan keeps August awake. Tomatoes collapse from chorus to choir. Garlic softens from shout to whisper. Basil lands like a promise. Olive market morning edits the menu. In Turin, crates of roots speak in earth tones. In Naples, baskets of plum red sing alto. Vendors count by scent, not numbers, choosing what will travel from stall to spoon. We carry home a weather report disguised as produce, and the kitchen translates gently. Some days are broth days, some nights are sauce nights. All days end with warmth. Boiling is a small storm, learning how to be kind. At first, busy, distracted, then steady as if it found its pitch. Northern strands ask for chew. Southern ribbons ask for glide. We taste for spring, not squeak. Forgive, not collapse. And the pot keeps time with the slow drum of the room. Far south, a pan keeps August awake. Tomatoes collapse from chorus to choir. Garlic softens from shout to whisper. Basil lands like a promise. Olive oil carries sunlight into the evening, remembering groves and ladders against bark. The sauce turns a courtyard learns to hold late sun. A balcony learns to shelter early snow. Chairs scrape softly. Bowls land like careful birds. Children chase steam. Elders choose corners where stories keep warm. between bites, the map unfolds. Broth for distance, sauce for nearness, and everyone arrives somewhere gentle. Write this down in the margin of the day. When the wind argues, cook thicker. When the night lingers, cook brighter. Broth builds from beneath. Sauce builds from above. They meet as equals in the mouth, and the noodle translates fluently. If you forget the rule, taste once for weather and once for rest. Far south, a pan keeps August awake. Tomatoes collapse from chorus to choir. Garlic softens from shout to whisper. Basil lands like a promise. Olive oil carries sunlight into the evening, remembering groves and ladders against bark. The sauce turns from red to warm, from heat to hush. You set a ribbo. Now let bowls choose bedsides. For those returning through snow, a clear road in a hot broth. For those waving at a pink horizon, a red embrace over pale ribbons. Either way, the table becomes a compass, and the spoon, the arrow. We fold napkins like small maps and close them on sleep. Tonight, the North and South share pillows and dream the same warm dream. Wood remembers hands. Grain keeps a diary of afternoons. A craftsman sands a rolling pin until it hums like a low shore. Board, knife, pin, basket, pasta guitar, noodle pole. Each tool is a quiet teacher, showing where to press, where to pause. Calluses become annotations along a handle darkened by olive light. Steel shaves fine ribbons. Bamboo lifts steam like prayer. And when you put them down, they rest, as if listening for the next pair of hands. In Recanati, wire strings sing softly as dough crosses a small bridge of sound. In Chengdu, baskets breathe, clouds of steam threading courtyards. In Matera, knives whisper, thin as moonlight on stone. Tools travel, slower than stories, but longer than voices. They carry wrist memory across borders, so a child can pick one up and feel a map of gestures etched under the palm. A groove is a footpath for sauce. A ridge, a place where thunder holds. You test the edge, not for sharpness, but for kindness. Can it say yes to gluten without tearing the breath from it? You oil the board the way sailors oil a rope, so it slides when asked and stops when told. Teaching is mostly waiting while the student becomes ready. Repairs are part of craft. A split handle bandaged with hemp, a basket rewoven at the rim. Nothing perfect, nothing broken, only tended. You learn to honor the patient seam, the quiet knot, because kitchens, like boats, survive by maintenance, and every tightened screw is a promise kept to tomorrow. At dusk, tools line up as if for roll call. You wipe them to the grain and lay a cloth like a small knight. The room holds its breath the way dough did at noon. What we made cools into memory, and what we will make warms in the dark. When the lamp clicks, silence finishes the lesson, and the handles keep studying our hands. Alleys glow with appetite. Laughter braids with lantern smoke. In Xi'an, night market pulls arc in slow silver. In Naples, street sauce paints twilight red. Stalls become doorways to small worlds. Bowls become tickets that never expire. Public joy is a recipe we forget until we taste it again, and the street keeps time with chopsticks tapping, cups answering. Feast days rename streets with drums and bells. A drummer keeps a soft metronome for noodles in flight. Vendors trade jokes like skewers back and forth across the smoke. A child learns to count by plates, not by numbers, and the city eats together in a single, slow breath. Menus loosen their collars when lanterns are lit. Festival broths carry cinnamon and clove. Festival sauces keep basil close to the tongue. Tables push outward like tide. Strangers become elbows at the same rim. No one asks who invented this comfort. They ask only whose turn to ladle. Midnight edits sound to murmurs. You hear the last ladle scrape, the last coin clink, the last shoe find home. Steam lingers in a doorway like a guest reluctant to leave. A vendor counts, empty bowls like stars, missing from a sky, and promises tomorrow's pot will begin with today's patience. When streets grow quiet, the city keeps chewing its dream. Carts fold into shadows, lanterns rest their fire. But the appetite for together does not sleep. It waits on boards and stoves to rise again with voices. So morning finds the same road wearing a new bowl of light. Preservation is love's twin. It waits where harvest ends and winter begins. Salt keeps what warmth would lose. Ash warms what cold would take. In Trapani, white pans mirror the sky. Wind combs brine into crystals like tiny moons. In Quanzhou, cords of noodles tan to straw on poles that creak like old ships. We save not only food, but afternoons and the hands that shape them. Into tomorrow, a mother ties bundles for the lean months, string whispering through her fingers. She counts by knots, not numbers, by stories, not scales. Each bundle is a promise to a night she has not met. The child beside her learns the calendar by touch. Solstice, equinox, festival, rest. On the wall, chalk tallies soften to dust, but the larder remembers clearly. Salt pans in Cagliari glitter like tiled light. Shallow, patient, exact. Birds stitch the distance with slow wings, and the sea signs its name again and again. Buckets rise and fall on rope like a measured breath over the day. Back home, a pot accepts the crystals as if receiving a blessing made of weather. Ash is gentler than it sounds. It keeps embers as a quilt over sleep. In mountain kitchens, clay bellies nestle in ash, keeping night soups warm as whispers. Morning finds the lid still breathing, not hot, not cold, but faithful. Time has a flavor when tended, not smoke, but memory held close. Ningbo alleys, dry noodles between shadows. Sun walks the lines like a quiet inspector. Neighbors trade trays across balconies, a moving bridge of care. At dusk, cords come in with the laundry, folded like small ladders for hunger. They will climb from pot to bowl on a storm day when the market sleeps. Syracuse stones keep the day's heat and return it by lamplight. Jars glow with tomatoes, olives, capers, summer waiting in glass. Labels are simple: date, weather, a note, sang while stirring, wind from west. What we write is for our future hands, so they know how patience tastes. Boats leave with thunder in their ribs. Carts arrive with dawn in their wheels. Trade is another way to say trust. I'll keep your brightness, you keep my calm. Salt crosses deserts like coin and story. Dry strands cross winters like quiet bridges. Between ports and passes, recipes learn to travel kindly. Open a jar, and August steps into January. Open a bundle, and fields walk into streets. The first scent is a key, turning memories lock without sound. We set a pot to welcome it, broth, opening its arms to stored sun or patient shade. The table is a harbor where seasons anchor together. Preserving is editing. We choose what the tongue must not forget. A ridge of salt here, a cool of ash there. Too much becomes a wall. Just enough becomes a door. We learn restraint, so tomorrow's bowl still tastes like today's truth. Time seasons what we save. It writes slow notes on every strand. When we cook again, we read them with ladles instead of eyes. The pot nods, the room grows kind, and winter loosens its grip a little. What returns from storage is not only flavor, but faith in gentle work. We sleep under blankets we wove from salt, ash, and patience. Arguments made of flour begin softly, like snow on sleeves. How thick should the ribbon be? How thin? Before courage becomes tear. Turin votes for chew against the weather. Siena votes for glide under late sun. Shenzhen tests ratios with careful spoons. Nanjing defends the pause between stretches. The board hears all sides and answers with silence, because kitchens keep score only in warmth. Water is a negotiator. Too little and pride cracks. Too much and purpose slips. A palm dips and lifts, listening for weight, not numbers. Someone says, another splash. Someone says, let it rest. The bowl turns slowly, as if reading the room. Then the dough decides to gather, to breathe, to hold, and the table exhales together. 3 generations lean over one board. Grandfather remembers winters and a strand that stood like a fence against cold. Mother remembers markets and a ribbon that floated through August. The child remembers laughter, flower prints like small constellations on the cheek. Each teaches with a different clock, but all agree on the taste of welcome. Rest versus rush. Rest is intelligent waiting. Rush is fear of being forgotten. Cover the dough with a clean sky. Let it dream until kindness returns. The pin will travel farther for a sheet that slept, and the knife will write straighter for a dough that listened. Thickness is weather in disguise. A mountain town cuts broader roads for boots of broth. A coastal kitchen draws narrow paths where sauce can shine without shouting. Both are correct because hunger changes shoes with the day. Taste once for sky. Taste twice for wind. Salt is counsel. Oil is courtesy. Salt steadies structure, keeps tenderness from wandering. Oil teaches glide, gives light somewhere to live. Too much counsel becomes law. Too much courtesy becomes blur. Just enough makes room for the noodle to speak. Debate cools when bowls grow warm. Arguments lose their boots at the door and eat in socks. We lift strands like comet tails, trying not to spill a single star. Someone smiles with a mouthful, and victory forgets its name. Write minutes of the home war. Agenda, thickness, water, rest. Action items, Laugh more. Taste sooner. Decisions. By spoon, not vote. Quorum reached when the pot finds pitch. Closing with steam. Carried unanimously. Next meeting, whenever hunger returns. Maintenance prevents arguments. The board oiled, the pin smooth, the knife honest. Without cruelty. Clean tools make kinder choices. Like clear windows. Make gentler light. We tend the room, so the room can tend us. And the dough notices. Everything at the end. Bowls circle like small moons, passing tides of warmth, hand to hand. No banners, no verdict, only permission to rest. We wash as if closing a book, water turning pages without tearing. Lights lower, voices fold, and even the clock eats slower. Home wars become soft victories, won by patience and soup. Under the hush, science hums. Tenderness is structure, behaving kindly. Proteins link arms into a quiet lattice. Starch granules swell like soft lanterns. Heat is grammar. Water, the verb. Salt, a counselor that steadies the line. We don't recite formulas at the stove. We listen, and the network answers. What we call just right is many small agreements holding hands in steam. Gluten begins as shy threads. Kneading teaches them to trust, push, fold, rest, a rhythm poems can borrow. Too much push makes pride, too little makes drift. The wise wrist stops early and lets time finish the lesson. So strands stretch without sorrow and return like tides. Starch is a library of tiny books. Each warms and opens page by page. At the edge of boiling, pages turn and thicken the world. Sauce clings, not by force, but by threads that welcome it. We call it gloss. The shine of confidence on a calm surface. It is science, speaking softly, through tomatoes, through broth. Emulsion is diplomacy in a pan. Oil and water learning the same song. Garlic whispers, yolk nods, heat conducts. Tiny bridges carry flavor across differences. Stir too fast, the treaty tears. Stir too slow, it never forms. The wrist finds middle weather, and the sauce becomes a river that holds. Temperature is a teacher with two voices. A simmer that thinks, a boil that hurries. Broth wants clarity, sauce wants patience. Noodles want a storm that's kind, of right now heat. The note water sings when change begins. When let the lesson finish itself. Rest is not idle. It is intelligent waiting. Networks reweave, moisture redistributes, edges forget to fight. Cover the dough with a clean sky and leave it to breathe. When you return, it welcomes the pin and rolls like evening light. Salt does more than shine flavor. It tightens the chorus just enough. A pinch too far becomes a wall. A pinch just right becomes a door. The tongue keeps records longer than any notebook. So we season for memory, not only for now. Water carries secrets of weather and stone. Hard or soft, quick or slow to listen. Pots learn local dialects, and so do wrists. If your city's water stands stubborn, add time, not fury. If it yields too soon, add rest and counsel of salt. Tools make experiments gentle. A heavy pin asks less effort. A wide pot keeps peace between strands. Wood stores warmth. Steel tells the truth. Quickly, choose what helps your patience, and the recipe will choose to be kind. When bowls circle, the theorem ends in quiet proof. Spring without squeak, give without collapse, gloss that carries story, clarity that carries home. We close the notebook with a ladle's edge and sleep in the confidence of small, steady laws. Islands keep secrets. They season wind before they season pots. Sicily hums with anchovy and dusk. Hainan folds citrus into salt-sweet air. Malta stacks stones like quiet commas. Zhoushan dries nets beside noodles swaying. Each harbor writes its accent in oil. Each cove signs its name with herbs, and the tide delivers letters we read with the tongue. Anchovy is a whisper, not a shout. It melts like advice from an elder, then leaves courage in the sauce. Sicilian pans warm slowly, capers open like small green eyes. Tomato lowers its voice to listen. Olive oil remembers the slope of the grove. By the time steam finds the window, the sea has written its signature. Citrus makes short days longer. A zest spark extends the shore. In Hainan, peel curls like a yellow tide. Beneath it, broth breathes easier. Lemon teaches a gentle brightness. Orange lends sweetness that forgives. The bowl becomes a clean horizon where winter meets a warm edge and smiles. Ginger arrives like wind, quiet at first, then steady. It straightens a broth without scolding, makes space for patience to speak. On boats, a thumb of ginger lives near the rope, a porter's medicine for restive water. In kitchens, it is a compass, pointing bowls toward calm. Fishers trade jars for roots at a small pier. Anchovy for ginger, olives for citrus, hands cross without argument, because dinners wait on both shores. Baskets creak with trust, ropes remember knots with names. By dusk, each house has borrowed one kindness and returns it as soup. Boiling becomes surf. Sauce becomes cove. Noodles land like careful boats, keels of gluten finding harbor. An island kitchen cooks for weather first, for guests second. So bowls taste of tide, and the ladle has sea light on its wrist. Markets near water sell time in bottles, nets, and salt. A vendor lifts a jar to the sun, and August stands inside, unblinking. Another folds dry cords, quiet ladders for later days. We carry home a map in parcels, and the stove translates without words. Some sauces never leave the island. They are shaped by cliffs and afternoon bells. The island shrinks to a table, and the table grows into a map of sleep. Write this before you dream. Add the sea without flooding. Add the sun without glare. Let salt be a bridge. Let zest be a door. Let heat be a patient host. Then send the strand to shore and listen for gentle hulls knocking at the bowl. Tonight, the islands taught us how distance becomes dinner. Candles instead of banners, bowls instead of shields. Verona lowers its bridges to supper. Hangzhou opens latticed windows to steam. Amalfi sets a lamp by the sea. Suzhou sets a lamp by the canal. We gather, not to win, but to warm, letting small flames edit our voices softer. A clear broth takes a vow of honesty. A scarlet sauce takes a vow of kindness. Noodles are treaty lines drawn with hands that remember. We sign with spoons, not with ink, and every signature is swallowed, becoming strength that argues with no one. Two cooks eat in silence after service, aprons turned down like quiet flags. They trade sips from each other's bowls, listening for weather and rest. One hears winter roads made gentle. One hears summer courtyards made near. They agree the map is correct when comfort finds every table. The room is a small harbor. Chairs tie their ropes to the floor. Plates come back clean like boats at high tide. And the sink becomes a moon, pulling them to sleep. Laughter folds into napkins. Stories cool to embers. What remains is a smell of patience and a promise to open tomorrow at dusk. If you listen, the dough still whispers from the bowl's round cave, not arguing, but agreeing that stretch requires rest, that strength blooms from softness, that hands are better in pairs. It thanks the palm and the pause and returns to wait for morning. Outside, streets practice sleep, shutters blink once, then close. Inside, the kettle keeps a small star for late tea and final notes. We write, no victor, no loser, only soup and bread and the long arithmetic of kindness that always balances. We stack bowls like moons, thin crescents to full. Each rim remembers lips, each base remembers heat. China and Italy become neighbors in the cupboard. When morning opens, they will step out and repeat the lesson with steam. If a traveler knocks, give them water first, then a seat near the stove. Ask for stories only after the second bite, when the road has left their shoes. You will learn more from warmth than from questions, and the map will redraw itself around your table. The soft war ends as it began, with wrists that remember, flour on the cheek, steam on the lashes, no drums, no banners, only kitchens teaching what gentle hands can do. And countries become cupboards when the ladle chooses peace. Now close the book with a ladle's edge. Let night knead the rest. Dream of roads that meet in bowls of bridges made of noodles unbroken. When you wake, water will listen and flour will forgive. Begin again with quiet wrists and the oldest treaty on earth. Dinner as truce and sleep as victory.